The easier the deal to get, to win the bid, the harder it is for you to get rid of the property when you go to sell it. This is Byron and Nicole White, and you are tuned into episode 135 of The Real Word.
See, I knew the number before we went in.
We were just talked about 2 seconds ago.
Word is up.
So if you forgot that quickly, we'd have a problem getting through this episode. All right, we got a buyer-heavy episode. Buyers are in, I don't know, high supply. Inventory is in low supply.
High supply.
Yeah, lots of buyers.
Interesting way of putting it. High supply. We have a
buyer-heavy market.
We're over.
Locally, we do.
What is that? Renewth over?
Whoa.
No.
Don't know. I never heard that. I think you made it up on the fly right there. A renewed?
It's really about like being your cup is full. Like your cup is full.
Yeah, lots of buyers. So buyer-heavy topic, 2 Inman articles, and then our Marketeer of the Week is a comedian that everybody knows. You got to stick around for that, or just fast forward to
You think everybody knows him?
Everybody knows this dude. He's iconic.
So not like Sean Penn. Like no one knows Sean Penn, but everybody knows this guy.
Everybody knows this guy. This guy is way more famous than Sean Penn could ever dream of being.
It's so funny. Have you watched? And I'm totally. I was watching the Today Show, and have you seen those twin brothers that listen to music that they've never heard of before? And
No.
it's like Aerosmith songs and like Phil Collins songs, and it's so fun to watch them like listen to these songs that like we all know, and like their reaction. Yeah, they're young. They're probably maybe early 20s.
But they've never heard these songs because they're early 20s.
But they're really wildly popular songs where you would think like, who doesn't know Phil Collins? Like, you know that what's that song In the Air?
I don't know the names, but when I hear it, you know.
But the YouTube page is actually blowing up because they keep on listening to all of these songs that they've never heard before, and like their reactions are so like authentic. But anyway, so it kind of reminds me of that because you're thinking that maybe everybody knows who this comedian is, but these young men don't even know Phil Collins. Or interesting, isn't it? Anyway,
very good nugget, Nicole. All right, racket number 1: 6 reasons your buyer should walk away from a house. From buying a particular
your
house.
Client,
right?
Why your client should be walking away from a house.
We're going to go through the 6. This is Vance Kellogg Inman article, just came out, and we're going to go through the 6 and see if we think it's a racket or not.
Okay.
All right?
Yep.
Home inspections come back with major problemos. Always recommend home buyers to complete inspections before moving forward. So home inspection comes back with major problems. Is that a automatic cancellation? He's saying the 5 biggest concerns: foundation, water intrusion, electrical, plumbing, and roofing issues. Should you just walk away?
Well, I wouldn't just walk away. I mean, a lot of those items are like now have to be disclosed, right? So now once the seller knows that those items are a problem, like they're going to have to disclose them in the future. So I would use that sort of as a negotiating tactic to hopefully maybe get the price lower or have them remediate. But I guess if things get wildly overwhelming and there's really no salvaging it, I mean, it just makes the most sense to walk away.
I think the only one that might make a lot of sense to walk away on this list would be foundation or water intrusion, because water intrusion seems to sometimes be impossible to correct. Like, well, even when you correct,
you could do like a curtain drain.
You can do the whole curtain drain, but there's
interior,
there's certain things where you're always going to be dealing with the sub pump or some type of.
So I'm never going to be able to sell my house.
Oh no, you'll sell it. Location is everything. Location. You got great location. All right, number 2, the home quality is questionable.
Okay.
So that you would probably, if something is questionable in the inspection, you'd probably want to go and have a contractor that you trust.
Yeah,
this
isn't even part of the home inspection. This is a whole nother bullet point. So you're not even at the home inspection yet. You're walking away from it, right?
Well, they're saying coming right off the coattails of the home inspection is the build quality of a home. So I'm assuming
I do have clients walk away, especially if I'm seeing like a flip that's done really poorly.
Oh, flips all the time.
I mean, that one's a no-brainer when it's. I mean,
I see so many like corners cut on some of these flips. So many. When I am working with a buyer and they want to do a flip, I just let them know this is a flip. I would never buy a flip. 90% of the time, maybe there's certain flips and flippers and,
Yep.
and real estate investors, I would certainly buy their product. But flippers are it's a math problem, and there's corners that get cut.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I think even with some builders, I actually had a buyer walk away. We never actually.
And it does
done
reference builders
new
in
construction.
here.
Yeah.
So not a racket there. The neighborhood isn't a good fit. The average homeowner will live in their neighborhood for 13 years. When buying a home, they're not just buying a property; they're also buying into the neighborhood.
Absolutely.
And their future neighbors.
Yep.
So they're saying to walk around the block. Walk around the block.
I mean, why not? I always tell people to do that.
Jim Brown used
Come
to
back
say-
at like 5 when everyone's coming home from like work. Come in the morning. Come on a Saturday. Go on a Tuesday.
I was just talking about this yesterday, actually. I want to go, I would want to go multiple times, be one of those creepy buyers, to find out if my neighbors have loud dogs.
Ew, you don't like dogs.
Yeah, well, I don't like annoying dogs.
Okay.
You
Wait,
know.
you like dogs all of a sudden? Like that's
Well,
like.
I'm trying to keep it PC here on the real
Okay.
word.
So as long as they don't make a noise.
I don't want to live
come near
in
you.
a super dog friendly area. I
Oh.
love where I live. There's one. There's one
You live
little
in a condo
dog.
complex that does not allow dogs, I'm assuming.
There's one little dog.
Wow.
Tiny.
Okay, so that's a good one.
All right, so neighborhood's not a good fit.
Yep.
You should know that before you engage in buying the house.
Well, that's what I'm
homework
thinking
you
too.
should do
Yes,
before you buy the
absolutely.
house. The price is too good to be true. Very, very, I agree with this. This is not a racket. If the price is too good to be true and nobody else is buying it, if it's an easy deal to get and there's no competition, especially in this market, if there's no competition to get,
Yeah.
the easier the deal to get, to win the bid, the harder it is for you to get rid of the property when you go to sell it. You want to buy real estate that everybody wants. You want to buy real estate that has multiple offers on it, because when you do go to sell someday, likely that location is going to be just as good or even better. You want that desirable real estate.
So I agree there, but you and I have had multiple conversations about this because we have some higher end buyers that are always asking us like, why hasn't this house sold? And I mean, it does sometimes come down to
When you go to the super luxe prices, that happens.
how many properties actually sell in that price point too. So we have to go.
Yeah.
We have to be a little easy. We can't just blanket the whole thing.
Even there are, in some
Because
of
then
the
everybody
higher price
asks,
points.
why? Like then they don't want to be the one that actually buys it because it's been on for so many days. But
Even in the higher price points, you will get these certain particular properties that will just fly off of the
Yes.
market. Those are going to be very desirable when they sell. But to your point, even in the most luxurious locations, vacation, Aspen, we were talking about a couple of weeks ago, and places in California, New York City, or whatever, or along the shoreline here in Connecticut, that high luxury, you do have a situation where they're going to sit in the market a little bit longer.
Right.
There's only so many buyers. Sellers become disinterested or aggressive. It's time to walk away. This is a racket. Okay?
Disinterested.
This
What
is
does that mean?
I mean, obviously, if they're not going to sell and they say
don't
no,
want to sell.
then it's not your choice. You're walking away anyway.
Well,
But
not necessarily. You could, if as a buyer, if you have an executed contract, you could totally push for performance on that one. You're just going to spend some money getting them out.
That is true. But this whole thing about sellers being aggressive, they own the house. And if you're an agent representing a buyer, it's your job to take emotions out of it. Aggressive is an emotion.
Well,
That's
right.
an emotion that you're perceiving.
Well, the buyer should never even know that the seller's being aggressive.
Correct. And maybe
Yes.
they do because of the dynamics of the deal or whatever.
Potentially.
But it's your job to take that perceived aggression, right? Like, who are you to say they're being aggressive?
Right.
Who are you, Mrs. Buyer and buyer agent, to say that seller's being aggressive? Maybe they're just energetic. Maybe they're excited about the deal. It's your job as the agent to take the emotion out of the deal.
Obviously.
So this is a total racket in my
Well, sounds like the agent's getting a little, they're ruining that deal right there.
I think so.
Yeah.
Things fall apart before closing.
Things fall apart, like doors fall apart?
Most,
like what's falling apart?
Most transactions go smoothly, but there are tons of moving pieces that can cause closing to be delayed or halted entirely. These issues are rarely the fault of the buyer. That's a racket. Who wrote this? Vance.
Kellogg.
What do you mean rarely the fault of a buyer when things get delayed? right now, most closings are being delayed, not necessarily because of the buyer, but the buyer's lender, right? Because everything's getting backed up.
Well, but that's not the buyer's fault, unless they're not getting
But it's
in
on
their
the buy
paperwork.
side. There's two sides to a transaction. The buy side, them getting their financing and all that kind of stuff, and then the sell side, the listing side.
So he's really putting this all on the seller because they're dragging their feet. But then he talks about title insurance.
Reputable title companies require title insurance to be purchased. And if you're dealing with a title company that's hesitant to provide the title insurance, beware. Yes, 100%.
I think he was just trying to come up with a sixth one.
All right. So I don't know. Would we agree with half of those? I agreed with maybe half.
Maybe.
So, all right. Good job, though, Vance. Really like the insight. Good conversation piece. We'll link that up.
I'm just feeling like if you're gotten that far, like you're so close to the end.
And if it's the house you want and all this
stuff.
I wouldn't let a little
invested
delay
all that money in home inspections and
frustrate me.
Yeah.
Okay. Racket number 2. 10 outrageous buyer beliefs agents should debunk ASAP. We talked last week about the seller. There was 8 seller beliefs that were no longer holding true.
We had a really hard time decoding, so it'll be interesting.
We're not going to have a hard time this time, right?
Did you read this article?
We're going to go quickly.
Okay.
Number 1, my family member has a real estate license. They will help me. Right? Do you agree with that? That's a total racket.
Total racket.
Number 2, we'll get a better deal. This is interesting.
Okay.
We'll get a better deal if we use the listing agent for the property we buy. So should all buyers forget about that in every situation? 100% of buyers, 100% of the time. It's a racket. Come on. That's a racket. Listen, there's going to be, if this is your first real estate transaction, I absolutely encourage you to have your own buyer broker, no matter what property you have somebody that you've chosen before you start the process,
right,
that you've really vetted out to represent you. If you're a brand new buyer. Now, if you're a dude like the dude that built this building, a real estate developer, Mr. Kenny Horton, who we just broke a record with in Guilford, Connecticut, New Haven County, highest sale ever. If you're Kenny,
you just know your number. You know your number. It either works or it doesn't. Like it's business.
Well, he's a master negotiator. He's been negotiating his whole life.
Yeah.
He knows how to get a deal done. It's not. He's a real estate investor. He's a very savvy real estate investor. He could go straight to listing agents, and he's done that on properties, and negotiate a better deal for himself. So that's two ends of the spectrum there.
Right.
And there's going to be all kinds of different scenarios everywhere in between. I would say for most people that are going to do 2, 3, 4, 5 transactions in their life that are buying single family residential homes, and maybe that's what we're referring to here. Maybe that's the angle they're coming from. That, you're probably going to want to have buyer representation that is, selected before you even start looking at homes.
Right. Yep.
Yeah.
No, I agree. I mean, I do think there's so much more. There's so much more.
Too many variables to that.
Well, that's just it. And there's so much more value beyond just getting a good deal on the house. It's like, are they directing you to the right home inspector? Are they directing you to the right attorney?
Correct.
Are they giving you information on how to turn all your utilities on? I mean, it's really endless. Yeah.
Number 3, we can't find the perfect house if we look long enough.
We can.
Oh, no, we can. I'm sorry. We can.
Yeah.
We can find the perfect house if we look long enough. Doesn't matter how long buyers look. There's no such thing as a perfect house. That is 100% true. There are dream homes. There aren't perfect homes. Even when you buy new construction, there's going to be a punch list. There's going to be things that are off. If you're only holding out for the perfect house, you're never going to find it.
Well, I do think, though, that there is a little bit of like a progression, though, with a buyer, because obviously you watch HGTV and these people think that they're on a $300,000 budget they're going to get all these things. So it does sometimes take a little bit of time for them to then realize, like, oh shit, house number 2 was actually the best house I've seen in this price range. It sort of goes along with the parent thing too. Like, if your parents are going to be like having to check that box, like they better come from the very beginning so they can see exactly like how the tour has progressed and like how the homes look like comparatively speaking. So
number 4, the home values posted online are probably more accurate than what my local agent thinks. Yeah, that's a racket.
Total racket.
I mean, don't buy into that Zestimate. That is there to lure you on to Zillow and it's worked quite well over the
Quite
last
well.
15 years. Number 5, it's smart to offer way under the asking price for a house we really want. That would be
The wrong move.
Yeah, agree with you. Number 6, sellers have to fix anything that's wrong with a property or compensate the buyers for repairs. Yeah, no, that is not true. So I
Not
agree. Some sellers just know they got the goods, and if they got multiple offers and they got cash offers, they don't have to do anything for you, even if you're at a higher price
Right.
buyer. Yeah.
Well, you're also 9 times out of 10 buying a used home too. Although, our contracts have gotten a lot better about like saying what you can and can't ask for during a home inspection. So that's always really helpful too, to remind your buyers like, hey, in the contract it says we can't ask for anything that's under like $100 or
I would say
$500
in
or
Connecticut, we have some of the best contracts. We definitely have one of the best MLSs, smart MLSs. We are very fortunate here in our real estate industry of this little state to have, I think, some really good tools to use.
Yeah.
Really do.
What's interesting though too is that I didn't realize that in California, the seller actually has to do a home inspection before they list.
Yes. Yeah.
So it's interesting, like where does the
There's a lot more paperwork in California.
Yeah, like where does like the negotiation come in then? Like are you allowed to hire your own inspector afterwards, or are you negotiating
in California,
after?
you got to do whatever California tells you to do. Just ask
Yeah.
Uber and Lyft right now.
Okay.
You can only do what they tell you to do.
Yeah.
If you want to breathe, you got to check with their gov.
Huh. Okay.
All right.
Well,
That's how California rolls.
that's how that is.
Number
Sorry I
7,
asked.
if we have to bid full price to get the house, we can always negotiate the price down when the inspection reports come in.
That's interesting.
If we have to bid, I think, listen, if you're bidding full price and you're winning the bid because of that, they're pretty confident in going back on the market. So
Well, or maybe
Don't
what if
think that you're
nothing
getting a
comes
lower
up in
price
the home
later. Right.
inspection?
That's
I mean,
such a gamble.
you definitely can't rely on that.
Yeah, so that's a good one. We can worry about getting a loan once we found the perfect property. Not in this market. You're going to miss out all the time with all these
Never.
competitive.
And why would an agent
competitive
want to take
offers.
you around? Like, what if you can't afford $400,000 and you're putting an offer in on a $400,000 house?
Number 9, all lenders are basically the same. Yeah, that is
The biggest racket.
a huge racket.
Huge
so
racket.
Totally agree. They are not all the same. You may want to talk to a couple before you feel comfortable, but definitely take the advice of your agent, because that's who you're going to be working with. There's some continuity likely there.
For sure.
Number 10, rates are terrific right now, so we're going to buy a car before the house closes.
I mean, again,
are there car rates that are terrific? Is that a thing?
It's not, but what's
that
funny?
whole example's a racket.
I feel like in both of them, they needed a 6 and they needed a 10. Like, why not just go with 9? Just go with 9. Stick with the 9.
That 10th one is a racket.
I've never heard a buyer ever say, you know what, I'm going to buy myself a car.
All right, I'm excited about this one.
Okay.
Growing up, this was my favorite show on TV. Probably still in my top 5 all time. The creator is the number 1 person I would ever want to have dinner with. I'm talking about Seinfeld.
You are talking
Jerry
about
Seinfeld.
Yes.
Jerry Seinfeld, you're our Marketeer of the week. He wrote an article, an opinion.
For the New York Times.
An op-ed? Is that what they call that? A little op-ed? An opinion piece?
I don't know, maybe ask Ness.
Sam says yes.
Yeah.
All right. Jerry Seinfeld. So
Whatever Sam says is the truth. I mean,
Yeah,
he just blows smoke all the time. He's like, yeah. That's how you say the word.
He could mislead us.
But we both rely on him so heavily.
Yes. Jerry Seinfeld. So you think New York is dead? It's not. And his reasons why, he talks about moving there in the hot summer of 76. It sounds like he doesn't love dogs either. There was no pooper scooper law, and the streets were covered in dog crap. I mean, oof.
He was pretty specific there.
I wouldn't want to do that. But he signed a rental agreement, walked outside. His car had been towed, and he still thought to himself, this is the greatest place I've ever been in my life. You have a lot of New Yorkers that are extremely passionate about the city. In fact, here locally, I was just in a restaurant last week, and through the plexiglass at the bar, through 3 layers of plexiglass, there was a nice lady sitting there doing a crossword puzzle. We started a conversation.
Yeah, and bobbed and weaved a little.
Bobbed and weaved. And she has a vacation home out here on the shoreline. And
she always has?
She's had it for years.
Okay.
It was a family property. So she's been coming out here for years. But she's in New York City, Upper West Side. And the way she was talking about New York and she's like, I'm not going to sell it. She's like, I don't want to be in the Upper West Side right now, like today. I'm always here in the summer anyways, but with everything going on, she's like, it's not what it's been the last 10, 15 years. She actually said it's like going back into the 70s. So it's interesting that Jerry brought up the 70s in New York City. I haven't been to New York City since the pandemic hit, so whether that's entirely true or not. Anyways,
is she referencing because of like crime?
She was
and
referencing
looting?
like people sleeping on the street, like it's all of a sudden feeling like San Francisco over there.
Right.
And so, point of this being is her passion, the way she was glowing, talking about New York City, how she'll be there the rest of her life. It was undeniable. And we've talked about this too. As much as we've talked about, we've had our day in the sun here the last, few months with all these New Yorkers coming out, and we've definitely benefited. There's been winners and losers in this thing, and Connecticut shoreline real estate's been one of the winners because people from New York City have decided to make a move to some degree.
To some degree, because I think, and I don't mean to, but like a lot of them, like they're really still just wanting a second home here. Yeah. It's not like they're permanently relocating.
That's true.
Yeah.
They haven't given up things.
They really aren't willing to sell their spots.
Yeah. Some are and some aren't, but that's true. Overwhelmingly, I think there are a lot of people keeping, whether it's the apartment or, the rent or whatever.
Right.
But we need in the Northeast of America, not even the Northeast, we need a thriving New York City.
Of course.
It's the best city in the world. So we need it to come back.
Well, and he says that though. He states about, he talks about how, everyone's working from home, but people move to New York City because of the energy, the culture. It's not about going to a play or going to the theater. It's about being around other people, even at work too. I love coming into the office because you get to sort of like feed off of others. And that's really what he's talking about, that, you can't ever take that away.
He said the best fiber optics in the world don't replace connection.
Right.
The energy you get from others and being around people, and like you're talking about collaborating, bouncing things off of each other. Yeah. And I agree with him. That's why people go to the city. They go for this human connection.
And, the whole thing is just so lively.
You see, the mayor said he's got absolutely no plan on when they're going to be able to eat indoors. He has zero plan right now when they're going to be able to eat indoors. So I agree with some of the things that Jerry's saying, and this piece is phenomenal. We'll link it up. You should read it.
Funny. We chuckled.
It's a quick read. He does it better than I think any, in my opinion, because I'm such a big Jerry Seinfeld fan. Yeah. He articulates this better than any real estate broker in the city could have, except for when he just keeps dumping on Florida.
That's because he references a woman. I think a woman. If you scroll up to the top, there's a link to the article that he read on LinkedIn. So go down.
Yeah, you're right.
He's responding right there. Some putts on LinkedIn. Yeah, wailing and whispering. So that person had moved to Florida. They left and were like, we're out. We're moving to Florida. And he's like, oh, you gave up.
And Jerry's clearly not that passionate about Florida. You get that. But I think what Jerry failed to mention is the other side of the coin. The mayor in New York City, I don't care what your politics are, and we don't talk politics, he's doing a pathetic job running that city. That's quite clear to everybody on both sides of the aisle. And it's because he gets up and he says, I have no plan for indoor dining in the foreseeable future. Like, it's not going to happen. You see now all the New York City restaurants are trying to sue the city because it's like, how does the rest of the city have indoor dining? How can I just go across the border to Connecticut? Right. They're pulling it off. We're pulling it off fine. Mm-hmm. I told you about the plexiglass, the whole thing. They've got it all set up. It's working very well. And so how does he have absolutely no plan, just crushing these local businesses that make up the greatest city in the world? I think that's the only thing Jerry probably left out, but he wanted to be a super positive piece. And I thought
he was super direct and proved the point.
Yeah.
Without, causing too much of a stir.
Yeah.
Look, see you at the club. That's how he ends it.
See you at the club. But right before that, he says, and I agree with this.
This stupid virus?
This stupid virus will give up eventually. The same way you have. Talking about the lady that wrote
that moved to Florida.
But I definitely agree with that first part. Eventually, this thing is going to give up. Eventually, we are going to get a hold of this, and hopefully, with enough data and leadership, we're going to get through it.
I feel like Seinfeld's sort of like our spirit animal. Remember maybe last year, it's funny actually, maybe it was a year and a half ago. I mean, we were pushing so hard to put a positive spin on Connecticut. Like, we were desperate to, instead of talking about our horrible taxes and our horrible state, we were trying to do these spins to actually make it sound like it's it is a great place to live. And obviously
it's like
people
a
are
vacation
now,
every day out here.
and people are now obviously finding out about it, which is why our market is booming now. And I feel like Seinfeld's sort of doing the same thing. So maybe we're the marketeers of the week.
And listen, and I mean, Jerry references that he's got a house in Long Island. He probably wrote this from the Hamptons, by the way.
I'm sure he
so,
did.
you know, Jerry's not hanging out
what
right
he's
now
saying
in New
is that
York
he's
City.
never leaving the city. He's not willing
Yeah.
to say that he's never going back.
And I think ultimately, whether he's hanging out there right now or not, which I don't believe he is, you know, I think he's looking forward to the day when people can go back. He's looking
Yes,
forward to the
absolutely.
day
Well,
when
we
New York
all
City can open
are.
back up.
We
I am
all
too.
are.
I want
We
to go
all
to
are.
dinner.
Yes.
You want to go to a play?
We like to go to the play.
Yeah. But I do think we're going to get through this. And when we do, New York City will be thriving, and everybody in America, and certainly for us in the Northeast, will be better because of it.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Good job, Jerry Seinfeld.
Yeah,
Maybe he'll retweet this.
maybe.
You know?
I doubt it.
All right.
Good try.
Love your thoughts. Love your opinions too, by the way. If you think New York City is going to bounce back, and when do you think it'll bounce back? Sooner, later? Think it'll take a long time? Your thoughts on New York City in the comments. Love to hear from you, and we'll see you next week.
Bye, guys.
Keep it real.
See ya.